Hello, welcome to the Comic Book Commentary. I'm Bo Leidig, and this week we are going to be talking about the next installment in my absolute favorite Ninja Turtle series. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 2 from IDW. Let's zoom in and take a closer look. First published in September of 2011, this is a pretty cool cover. Nothing fancy, just Splinter and the 4 turtles on the front. Notice they're all still wearing the red bandanas as they did in the original Mirage Studios version. Also, I really appreciate the fact that on this cover, all 4 of the turtles are depicted as having slightly different skin tones. This is something that has kind of changed throughout the years. Sometimes they have the exact same greens, sometimes they have different greens. In the original Playmates toy line, each one of the turtles did have a slightly different green hue to their skin tone, which kind of helped distinguish each turtle a little bit more. And obviously they changed the bandana colors to help children, who was exactly who they were trying to market the toys to, distinguish one turtle from another. But it is nice that, they're kind of taking that into account when producing this cover. Story: Kevin Eastman and Tom Waltz. Script: Tom Waltz. Layouts: Kevin Eastman. Art: Dan Duncan. Colors: Rhonda Pattinson. Letters: Sean Lee. Editor: Scott Dunbier. Associate Editor: Bobby Curnow, I believe is how you say that. We see here on the inside of the reverse cover the depiction of all of the different covers that exist for this book. And this is probably the only real major complaint I have about this entire iteration of the Turtles in the IDW line. It's that pretty much every issue has 4 to 10 covers available for it, which seems excessive. 1 or 2 is fine, and I understand the first issue or, big time issues like 100 or 200 or however far you get, having a lot of covers. But for just regular, everyday, run-of-the-mill issues that are just continuing the storyline and what have you, 2 covers seems like plenty. Once you start getting 3, 4, 5, 6, it almost feels just a little bit greedy as a way to try and, force retailers to buy more issues than they really need, or, really push your readers to try and buy tons of issues of the exact same book. Buying 2 issues for 2 different covers is one thing. Buying 5 to 10 issues for all the different covers is asking a lot on a monthly basis. We see here on the first page, the story picks up exactly where it left off in the first issue. If you haven't watched my video about the first issue of this comic, I suggest you do. It will help this issue make a lot more sense, as this story is a mostly linear narrative. We see here Raph with his fist in the air, upset about how Casey's father is beating him up, and tells him to put the kid down. Casey and his father are showing a different range of emotion. Casey's a little surprised. His father just seems angry. And then we see that Raph just says, "Now." Casey's dad, of course, does not take kindly to this, as he tells Raph that no one breaks into his house and tells him what to do. Casey also tries to de-escalate the situation, telling Raph that it's okay, he's got it under control. However, he's interrupted when his father swiftly backhands him, knocks him down, and tells him to shut up and stay down. Raph, of course, has had enough seeing this. He lunges across the living room right at Casey's dad, smashes him up against the wall, starts punching him in the gut and across the face. This brings Casey's dad to his knees, but he's not done, as he's actually quite a bit tougher than he looks. Casey's dad then goes on the counterattack, catching Raph with a punch to the face. Raph ducks the next one, but then catches a knee to the chin as he starts to bleed out of his mouth. Casey's dad believes that he is now the one in control and starts to mock Raph as he tries to bury an elbow into his back as he's getting up. But we see there's a loud thunk, and Casey's father's elbow is now very hurt, as, Raphael's a turtle. He has a big shell on his back, which he now reveals to both Casey and his dad. Raph then realizes this is his chance to once again go on the offensive, as he catches Casey's dad with a punch to the gut, then across the face, then another punch as Casey looks on very surprised, and then Raph throws Casey's dad straight out of the apartment. Oddly enough, Casey and his father, neither one seem to be really as shocked as they should be that a 5 foot tall talking turtle man just broke down the door to their house and started beating one of them up. I mean, yeah, his dad is fighting against Raph, but still, you'd think they'd be somewhat shocked that there's this anthropomorphic animal man who's suddenly in their home and, trading blows with one of them. Realizing that he has been bested, Casey's dad fumbles with his keys, hops into his car, and then peels off into the night, cursing at Raph and Casey as he goes. Casey tells Raph not to worry about it, let him go, that this happens to all the time. He then states, though, that this is the first time anyone's ever broken in to help, especially someone that looks like Raph. Raph then apologizes for smashing the door in, but Casey tells him not to worry about it. It's not the first time that a door's been busted up in their home. Then Raph asks if Casey's actually okay, and Casey states that he's all right, but he is a little bit concerned and wonders about one thing. The wonderment on Casey's part is, of course, where did Raph come from, as we are then thrust back into a flashback that happened 15 months earlier, as we see April O'Neil, still working at StockGen, being startled late at night by none other than Splinter, who is at this time a lab rat, bringing her a CD-ROM in his mouth. And again, she's really not as shocked by this as she should be. I don't know how frequent an occurrence it is that this rat is just bringing things to her, but when he's carrying a CD-ROM that's almost the size of him in, an envelope, it just seems like she should be a little bit more surprised than she is, as she takes it from him, seemingly more disgusted by the fact that there's rat slobber on the envelope than being surprised that a rat just brought her a CD-ROM. We then see Splinter on top of the aquarium that houses the 4 baby turtles, as he hears a noise coming from another part of the building. April looks a little bit closer, wondering what it is that Splinter has brought her, as we then see Splinter run out towards the lobby, as he sees the silhouette of 2 nefarious figures outside of the door who are using a glass cutter to cut a hole that they can slip through, as we see it is 2 ninjas. And I'm guessing you probably already know what clan these ninjas are from, as we see Splinter looking somewhat distraught by what he's witnessing. Back inside of the lab, we see that April pulls up the envelope to see what it says, and it reads confidential proprietary Terrapin human exo-armor synthesis, military application, battlefield. We then see in the background of the lab the 2 shadowy figures from before leaping through the background. April kind of sees it out of the corner of her eye, but just chalks it up to being tired and just believing that she's seeing things that aren't there, as she opens the envelope, presumably to insert the disc into her computer so she can find out what's on it. She then sees the reflection of the 2 ninjas in the bottom of the CD. She turns around, startled at first, and wonders what's happening, assuming that perhaps there's some sort of late-night security, as they state to basically take care of her and that they're going to kill her. She believes that this is a joke being played upon her by her co-workers as they approach her, and then she realizes that she's in danger as one of them takes a katana, taking a swipe at her. She jumps out of the way in the nick of time. However, the CD is sliced in half in the process, as April is now in a struggle for her very survival. On the next page, we see Splinter turn around to see one of the ninjas grab a group of vials and throw them into a sack, and also sees that one of the ninjas is approaching April, attempting to finish her off as she grabs a beaker as a means to try and defend herself. Splinter realizes that she needs help, so he runs down the hallway as quickly as his little rat feet can carry him. And just as one of the ninjas is about to apparently end April, he jumps up and grabs the fire alarm. This, of course, throws the entire game plan that the ninjas had off, as one of them tells the other that they need to get out of here as quickly as possible, that they can't be caught. We also hear some of the actual security guards from the facility approaching from off the panel here. Splinter then looks somewhat distraught as he realizes that one of the ninjas is also grabbing the turtles out of the aquarium to throw into the same sack as the vials. April takes the opportunity to smash her beaker across the face of the one that was about to kill her and screams no, trying to get the attention of the security guards who are approaching the sound of the alarm. After striking the ninja, April then wastes no time in running away from him as quickly as possible, screaming, "Help, I'm in here," trying to get the attention of the security guards. The two ninjas then realize that they can no longer worry about April as they have to avoid capture and being seen by the security guards. April then meets up with the two security guards, saying that they almost killed her. Unfortunately, the ninjas are now gone, and the security guards are at a loss for what's actually happened. Realizing that April is now safe, Splinter wastes no time as he leaps into action and starts to give chase to the two ninjas. April then collapses down to the floor in a heap, obviously very distraught, and this is understandable given that she was almost murdered. We then see outside of the building that the two ninjas are climbing up a rope as we see Splinter giving chase still, one of them still carrying the sack with the turtles and the vials in it. They are then on the rooftop as Splinter is caught up to them pretty quickly given the fact that he's a rat and they're, fully trained human ninjas who are, assumedly pretty fast on their feet. We see one of them leap from one building to the next as the one behind him carrying the sack is intercepted by Splinter as he jumps onto the ninja's face, causing him to drop the sack. Splinter then starts clawing onto his eyes and face, trying to create some sort of space between him and the sack with the turtles as we move on to the next page. However, the ninja is able to pry Splinter off of his face as he then throws Splinter off the roof alongside of the sack that he's dropped as we see them plummet down to the alleyway below. Fortunately, the fall is only about 2 stories, which is still a good distance. However, none of them weigh very much, so the impact of that fall is lessened by the fact that they all have a much smaller mass than humans do, as we see them fall and land in the ooze that has come out of all of the broken vials. We then see Splinter and the turtles all awash in the glowing green substance, and then Splinter wakes up and is distraught to see a stray cat grabbing one of the turtles and walking off that's covered in ooze. The cat probably getting the ooze on him as well. Well, not probably. This cat, spoiler alert, is actually Old Hob. But we then see a small dialogue box in the bottom as one of the turtles asks Master Splinter if he really believes they'll ever find him. We're then teleported back to the present day in the turtles' lair in the sewer as we see Splinter and the other 3 turtles all going about their normal business. Splinter having a cup of tea. We see Leonardo practicing. Donatello is doing machines. And Michelangelo is lying on the couch scarfing a piece of pizza as they continue to talk about whether or not they are going to be able to find Raphael and what they think the chances are, as it seems like the other 3 turtles are starting to grow slightly impatient and potentially losing hope in the fact that they'll ever find Raphael and wondering if he's still in the city at all. However, Splinter is steadfast in the quest to find the missing turtle as he explains to the other 3 that he is in full belief that their brother is still in the city and that despite the fact that they have other issues that are pressing, that none of those issues are nearly as important as finding their lost brother, and reassures all of the turtles in their quest and kind of tries to put to rest any of the doubts that they have and states that he knows that they've had a lot of failures as it's been a year since they've lost Raphael, but he also lets them know that finding their brother and getting their family back together is priority number one. And despite the fact that it's been difficult and they've had a lot of dead ends, that they have to remain steadfast and redouble their efforts to find their missing brother. We're then teleported back to Casey Jones's apartment as we see he's putting ice on his face, trying to get the swelling down from where his dad was hitting him. And he and Raphael are conversing. Raph then explains to Casey that he doesn't know what his name is and he doesn't know exactly where he came from, just that he's been wandering the streets for the past year. Casey tells him that that's tough, but Raph, seems a little bit chipper about it, saying that it's all he's ever known and all he can remember, so it's not really that bad for him. Casey then introduces himself formally to Raphael, saying that he's Casey Jones, and holds out his fist and tells Raph not to leave him hanging, so we get respect Nux. Then Raph says that he's not really sure why, Casey was taking such a beating tonight. He wasn't sure what was happening, but he felt like he needed to, inject himself into the situation and stop it. Casey lets him know then that his father has become somewhat of a hopeless alcoholic and very violent. And this is all stemmed from when Casey's mom died. And apparently his father, rather than try to deal with this in a more constructive manner, just lost his hope and became a very violent drunk and took out all of his frustrations and anger on Casey as a result. Raph is rather sympathetic to this and, is sorry to hear that Casey's had such a hard time of things, but Casey tells him it's not that big of a deal, that, he just deals with it as best he can. As we see the two of them, start to really bond over, the hardships that they've both had to endure. Casey then tells him that, overall he's okay and that he can handle it. And Raph states that, he wants to try and help Casey in whatever way he can, but Casey tells him not to worry about it and actually offers Raph some food as he says he looks hungry. And Raph says that he's more than likely to oblige as long as it's not garbage, because he's tired of eating garbage. Casey then goes to the fridge and opens it up, but of course it's empty because assumedly his father is spending all of his money on alcohol instead of buying food. Raph tells him that that's all right, that they'll figure something out, but Casey tells him not to worry about it, that they're going to go and get some food from the store. And Raph seems pretty happy about this, and then Casey says, "Let me grab my stuff from my room, and maybe we'll have a little fun along the way," as we see him donning the hockey mask for the first time with a couple of baseball bats. And this is the first inclination we get that Casey might be up to something all on his own. In spite of the fact that he has such a difficult home life, he's moonlighting as something a little bit different, as we see that the story is to be continued. We then see on the next page a preview of the cover of issue number 3. It looks pretty cool. On the next 2 pages, we see Ninja Notes, and these are mostly just a lot of notes praising the first issue and, just kind of heaping on a lot of questions that obviously can't be answered this early on by Bobby Curnow, who seems to be the one that's responding to all of these questions that were written in by readers. One thing I did find interesting, though, one of these letters is a question about whether or not the mutanimals will show up, and Bobby says that he can't answer as to whether or not that's going to happen right now, that they don't have any plans of that at the moment, but they have a lot of story ideas that they're just kind of batting around. But spoiler alert, in the future we know that the mutanimals do actually show up in this book and play a major role as time goes on. It takes a little while to get to that point, but they do become a very prominent part of this overall story. On the next page, we see that the Ninja Notes are continued, and we also get these cool images of page layouts that were done by Kevin Eastman that are pretty similar to what were used in the final product, but it is kind of cool to see some original Eastman artwork, and it's something that we will see more of going forward in this series. The next page is an advertisement for the Ghostbusters comic that was put out by IDW. I never actually read any issues of this, but I would have liked to, maybe not necessarily collect all the single issues, but potentially some of the larger collected hardback omnibus or something. It always seemed like a little bit of an intriguing thing. I didn't know exactly how it fit into the Ghostbusters story, if it incorporated stuff that happened in the animated series, as the animated series actually is a direct story continuation of the events of the first movie. So I'd be interested in knowing how exactly this connected in, if it connected in at all. If you have any information and you read that book, feel free to chime in the comments. I would like to know more about this. On the next page, we see an advertisement for the Jurassic Park comic book by IDW, which I completely forgot existed. I did remember after seeing this ad that, this book was on the shelves at one point, but I don't think it lasted all that long. It seems like it's a difficult thing to make a tie-in comic about, just because while there is a level of science fiction that exists in the Jurassic Park narrative, and you do get a bunch of dinosaurs, it's a story that I think lends itself better to, the big screen or the small screen in some way, not so much in a picture type of presentation. Those are just my opinions, but it was never something that really interested me. It just, it's cool that it exists, but again, I don't know. Jurassic Park just doesn't seem to me like something that really works in a comic book format all that well. But then again, who knows? I could be wrong. Maybe this is one of the best comics that's ever happened. Like I said, I didn't read it. If you know more about it, feel free to chime in the comments. And on the reverse inside cover, we get an advertisement for the Legend of Drizzt from Dungeons & Dragons. If I'm saying that wrong, I'm sorry. I can't remember how you're supposed to pronounce this. I do remember these books being very popular. I worked at a bookstore for a short period of time, and we sold quite a bit of the Legend of Drizzt series of books. I remember a few of them came out. Was it? Yeah, one or two of them came out when I worked at that bookstore, and definitely had a lot of people come in and buy them. So I'd assume that this comic is probably pretty good. I know it's supposed to tie in directly to those novels. If you ever read the novels or this book, again, chime in in the comments. Let me know how this comic was, how it tied into the novels. I'm actually kind of interested in that. And that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #2. I really like this book a lot. It doesn't do anything exceptional. However, in this case, that's a really good thing. And the reason I think that is because it conveys everything it needed to convey in a very easily understood manner. We see, a whole lot about, the stuff that Casey Jones is dealing with, the physical abuse that he's suffering at the hands of his father, the difficult home life, the loss of his mother. We see the turmoil that Raphael's going through, not being able to remember who he is, where he came from, dealing with living in poverty and squalor, and also having to hide his identity because of, not wanting to scare people. We also see the origin story of Splinter and the Turtles explained more through flashback, showing how they were able to get out of StockGen Labs and also how they became mutated, and also the beginnings of their feud with Old Hob, which was told in a way that used almost no dialogue, but you have no trouble following it based on the panels and the action. We also then saw the doubt that the other turtles are dealing with in whether or not they're going to find their brother, but the fatherly wisdom that Splinter has and the way that he is able to use that as a teaching moment for the turtles and show them that when things seem their darkest, you have to, kind of put things into perspective and not necessarily just give up because it doesn't seem like you're not going to succeed, which is a really cool lesson to teach the turtles and also the readers. We also see the beginnings of Casey Jones and Raphael's friendship, and how the two of them were able to not only meet up but really bond over the difficulties that the two of them were facing in their own lives. All in all, it's just a really well put together story, and it was written in a way that you can follow easily, and then coupled with artwork that really conveyed exactly where they wanted the story to go and exactly what they wanted the reader to learn in this issue. It was fantastically done. Hats off to Eastman, Waltz, and Duncan. They did a great job with this one. But those are just my opinions. Your opinions may vary. Perhaps you didn't like this book at all, but that's okay because everyone's entitled to their own opinions. If you enjoyed today's video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for stopping by. Have a great day.